You're looking out the window and you see your mother, who is handcuffed, bent over the hood of a police car, screaming, yelling. In the midst of that, she looks over at you and your brother and says, "Don't worry, baby. I will come get you."
That's like one of the most devastating moments of my life. How could one ever forget how you felt in that moment? Helpless and hopeless and worthless. Like, I don't matter. I believed I didn't matter. So then what the fuck is the point? At 10 years old, what is the point of life? I live under this bridge, and every night I pray that the bridge collapses on me like there's an earthquake or something, because I just wanted to end this complete stranger, this sad story of the state of my life. And he looked at me and he just said, "You don't want to die. You just want to stop living the way that you've been living. And you don't know that you have other options."
It's noon on a Tuesday. You're 8 years old, sitting next to your 6-year-old brother in the back of a police car. You're looking out the window and you see your mother, who is handcuffed, bent over the hood of a police car, screaming, yelling. In the midst of that, she looks over at you and your brother and says, "Don't worry, baby. I will come get you." A few minutes later, you're at a group home with a stranger being asked a bunch of questions. You don't know what's going on. 2 weeks later, a social worker walks in the door of the group home and says, "Roman, your mother has relinquished all of her parental rights. You are now a ward of the state of California." Can you reflect back for us and try to connect with what you were feeling and thinking in that moment?
Yeah, that's like one of the most devastating moments of my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, how could one ever forget how you felt in that moment? And for me, it was helpless
Mm.
and hopeless at that time and worthless. Like, I don't matter.
What is that even like for an 8-year-old?
Well, that wasn't the first time I felt that way.
Okay.
You know, uh, rewind several years. I had spent the first couple years of my life living with my father,
All right.
and he decided one day that like that was no longer working for him, or he wasn't fit to do that.
All right.
So he had driven me to my mother's house, who I'd never met at the time, and sat me on the front porch. She wasn't there. And he said, "I'm sorry, your mom will be here. I can't do this anymore." And he left. And I remember sitting on the steps thinking like, wow, like what did I do wrong? You know?
And you've never met your mom
At
at
that
that
point,
point.
no, she showed up.
You've never been to this house. You were just dropped off
Yeah.
on the porch. No one's home. Wait for this person you've never met
Yeah.
because I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, essentially. And like living with my dad wasn't great, but like he wasn't a bad person, just a bad parent.
Yeah,
That was a much different uh case with my mom.
sure.
Obviously, like at the end of the day, she was arrested and she relinquished all rights. But in that time that I lived with her, it was it was traumatic, man. It was abuse, neglect, abandonment, like physical, mental, emotional damage. But I had like a deep sense of loyalty to her,
Of course.
because she took me in off her doorstep. So in that moment where the cops were arresting her and she was wiling out, which I was used to at that point. I had seen her do drugs and overdose and have a bunch of people over at the house. Like, I was used to that.
Right.
And when she looked at me and she said, "Don't worry, baby, I'm gonna get you back." Like, I believed that.
Okay.
I believe that.
So then in between that moment of that statement and 2 weeks later being told by the social worker that she's relinquished rights, what was going on for you?
Yeah, I mean, I got to this group home and confused, scared, and I had my younger brothers, both of them there.
Okay.
And these other kids that were in the group home would come up and ask you questions. And I would say, oh, I'm only here for a little bit. My mom's going to get me back. She promised she was going to get us back. And these kids being like, no, they all promised that.
Mm.
They never come back. And me having this weird sense of loyalty to this woman, defending her and saying, no, she's different. She told me that she's going to get me back. She loves me and she cares about me. And she's coming back. And so when that social worker walked in the office and said, Roman, your mom's not coming back, it was like, it was like my whole world fell apart, you know? Everything that I had ever believed or thought I knew all came crashing down, you know? And then that started a life of me believing I was hopeless and unworthy and helpless.
How could you have had any other belief at that time? I mean, I sit here and feel heartbroken for you, right? And heartbroken in my own experience, just listening to what you went through. How did that begin and continue to manifest through your life? This feeling of hopelessness, not being worthy of love, being helpless. Like, fast forward to some kind of key moments in your life where this continued to show up or people showed up in your life. And yeah.
So, like, that idea that I was helpless and hopeless and unlovable became beliefs,
Okay.
which then in turn, over time, began to develop into like my identity.
Mm.
And so, like, was in and out of foster homes for years. I was split from my siblings. My two brothers went to one foster home, and I, having this belief that I'm unworthy and unlovable, was just wilding out, man, running away, causing problems, fighting with other kids. So they removed me, and then I bounced around to different foster homes. So every time I bounced around to a different foster home, that reinforced this idea that like something's wrong with me, right? Like
Right. Because we
these,
don't want you here.
yeah,
We're going to send you somewhere else.
yeah. So then that happened several times, and then I'm like, oh, okay, like they don't even fucking want me either. To this place where like at 10 years old, I I believed I didn't matter. So then what the fuck is the point? At 10 years old, what is the point of life?
Okay. So at that point, really starting to become, to really have embodied the idea of hopelessness.
Yeah.
What's the point? Like,
Yeah.
this is completely hopeless.
Poster child.
Okay.
But then some things started happening.
Okay.
And I like to say that like man, I've been blessed. Like you hear about my childhood and you're like heartbroken. Same, man, I still feel that way. But on the flip side, I've been blessed with some angels in my life. And the first ones were my adopted parents, you know? And my brothers and I were split and
And you're split this whole time. So from,
years,
call it
yeah,
8-ish, 9-ish to,
10, 11.
okay.
We're split. I hadn't seen them in a while. I was a problem bouncing around. My biological grandparents were in the process of adopting them,
Okay. But not you.
but not me. They were like, he's too much of a problem,
Okay.
too far gone, too broken.
At 11.
11.
Okay.
And I got a new social worker and she saw that this was going to happen, this split of the two, that I likely was going to just stay in the foster care system and phase out because that was such a problem,
Right.
and that my relatives were going to adopt my brothers, and that was that. And so, as kind of like a Hail Mary last ditch effort, she reached out to my adoptive parents, who were at the time looking for two infants or toddlers and a boy and a girl. That's what they wanted. And they had been fostering others looking for them. And my social worker went to him and said, "Hey, I know that this is not what you're looking for. These kids are older. One of them's kind of a problem, but they're about to be split forever. And I just want you to look at their file."
All right.
And my parents, they say that they took that home with no real interest in it, but sat on it, looked at the files, looked at our pictures, prayed about it, and in the morning called and said, "We'll take him." You know,
How old were you?
11, I think, 10, 11,
Okay.
somewhere around that.
Okay. So was this one of the first times or the first time that you felt there was somebody that actually cared? Or what was like, could you even feel that way? Like what was the feeling when you found out you were going to be adopted with your brothers? Or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I think that had I not already accepted that I was worthless,
Mm,
that moment would have reshaped my whole life,
okay.
because I went into a wonderful family with two loving, caring, responsible people, who are the best people I've ever met. Um, but being that like I felt like I was worthless, that didn't make me feel much different.
Okay.
So like it was rocky, up until adulthood, really. Like
Okay.
it's
So give us the like 11, you're adopted
Yeah.
to what do the next years look like? And what's the next major moment that something else happens?
Yeah, I mean they loved me, but I couldn't receive it,
Got it.
right? Because like if I'm unlovable, then like I can't accept your love,
Right.
right? So for years it was like this beautiful family home where they were instilling values and love and nurturing and caring, but me not accepting it and then acting out in school, getting in trouble in school. I played sports, started getting in trouble in sports. That was like one of my only outlets, to the point where in like high school, I was spiraling down, drugs, started coming into my life. And I was just acting out in every single way, to the point where my parents like found me a counselor to talk to, and then this was kind of another angel. This counselor I would go to, and I was completely reluctant, and she would just listen with no judgment, and she would just always tell me, like, "Hey, you're incredible and you're worthy." And again, like at the time, I couldn't accept
Because
that.
it's just like bouncing off. Like
Right.
she's saying it, but the defense is already there. The belief is there. So
Yeah.
it's just like you're
Yeah.
not even, you might be hearing it, but it literally is just like bouncing off.
Yeah. It wasn't until years later, we'll get to that, that like the accumulation of all these people planting seeds in me really started to grow, and I could see it. But
Okay.
that was another one of them. Now, my behavior didn't change. And ultimately, like, I ended up joining the military, getting kicked out of the military, finding myself committing crimes. Ultimately, I get sent to prison.
Okay.
And at this point, I've been a tornado in everyone's life. And everyone, including my parents, who were still supportive and loving, everyone kind of stepped back and was like, "We don't know what to do." And I was in prison.
How long was this bid?
My first term was like 2 years. I think I
Okay.
did like 14 or 15 months on it.
State prison, federal prison.
And that one was federal prison.
Okay.
And I remember getting to federal prison, and I was 19, and I'd been committing crime for a while, like living homeless, like just a bad way of life. So then I get to prison where there's all these much older people who've been committing crime and who were also like unlovable, hopeless, helpless people. And like I fit right in,
Mm.
you know? And there's this culture in prison where it's like a lot of hate and sadness and stuff. And so I dove right into that, you know, and I felt the sense of camaraderie, but another angel appeared in my life.
Okay.
And it
Tell
was,
us about that.
yeah, it was this older white supremacist gang member who was doing 50 years in prison. And he was kind of like head of the car or whatever, you know.
So he had the keys.
He had the keys,
Okay.
and I was acting out, being a tornado, just doing anything that I could to fit in. And he pulled me aside and said, dude, like, you're getting out of here. Like, you're getting out of here someday. A lot of these other people aren't. Stop. We're not going to ask you to do anything. We want you to get out of here. We don't want you to do this. This isn't your life. You're just a visitor here. Don't make this the rest of your life. And this guy, for who, you know, had no reason to, kind of took me under his wing and to a certain extent like protected me from spiraling even further out of control in prison.
Wow. Okay. So you have this mentor
Yeah.
from out of nowhere. I
Yeah.
mean, anybody that is familiar with the politics, especially gang politics in prison, that would somewhat be unheard of in many ways. That this happened
100%.
to you. So
Yeah.
this is something completely out of the norm.
Yeah.
He then walks with you and walks next to you through the rest of your term.
Yeah.
You get out of federal prison. Okay. And now
Yeah.
you're back out on the streets. What's the next moment where someone shows up in your life?
Yeah, so unfortunately, that wasn't like the last time in prison. I got out and immediately got addicted to heroin and started living that lifestyle, which quickly led me back to prison after, you know, some unfortunate events, like a good friend of mine overdosing and me picking up a sales charge, going to prison, almost not making it out, not taking that man's warning and his gift, but eventually making it through, getting released to the streets of San Diego
Okay.
and living under a bridge. And I would live in this bridge, and like every day I would like wake up, and the only thing I knew in San Diego was that there are AA meetings. And the only thing I knew is that like people were changing their lives or like at the very least living differently. And all I had was a skateboard. And so I would skate around San Diego all day, every day to all these different meetings. And I would desperately just like try not to self destruct.
Okay.
And usually I'd make it to about like 7 p.m. And there was a 7 p.m. meeting in Little Italy that was my favorite because it was kind of like richer people and they would always have like fresh cookies and coffee and stuff.
They had better refreshments.
Yeah. And so like that usually was my only meal of the day. I would literally go to this meeting just to steal all the cookies, right? I wouldn't talk to anyone and I would steal the cookies. Well, apparently they caught on. So they had asked somebody in the meeting
They knew.
to kind of watch the cookies. And so one night I'm sneaking out the door and I got my hood on and I walk over to where the cookies are. And there's this older gentleman. He looks at me and he freaking knows
Right.
that I'm the cookie thief. And I know that he knows. And we have this awkward moment. And then I turn to leave. And he says, hey, are you hungry? And I hadn't talked to a single person in months. And like I said, yeah. And he was like, do you want to go get some food? It's on me. And I was like, yeah, yeah, I do. And so I got in his car and we went and we got some tacos. And over the course of like the next hour, this man who I'd never met and was a complete stranger started asking me like questions about how I'm doing with general like care. And I told him, man, I live under this bridge, and every night I pray that the bridge collapses on me, like there's an earthquake or something, because I just want it to end. And like I'm too big of a coward to do it myself. Also, like I want people to feel bad for me. So if it's like a tragedy, maybe they'll put it in the newspaper. Like,
Then it won't be just Roman's a drug addict or a criminal or
yeah.
whatever. It'll be, oh, like this
So
a tragic event.
I'm telling this man, this complete stranger, this sad story of the state of my life, and he looked at me and he just said, "You don't want to die," which I thought was absurd because I just told him essentially that that's how I felt. He was like, "No, you don't want to die. You just want to stop living the way that you've been living, and you don't know that you have other options."
So what was that moment like? I mean, you had something had to be going on in your mind when you don't believe you're hopeless, you don't believe that you can be helped, you don't believe you're worthy of a lot of things, and you got a man who's just bought you dinner because you're hungry. He knows you're stealing the cookies, and he says you can have a different life. Was there anything that happened there?
Yeah, man, it was the facade cracked
Oh,
just enough. Like life had hardened me. My belief that I was unworthy, unlovable, and helpless, like hardened me. And in that moment with this complete stranger, man, that facade, that shell that I had created to keep everyone at bay for years, man, for years, cracked, cracked just enough for the seed that he was planting in that moment to get through,
hmm.
to get through. He said, listen, if you follow these steps and you're willing to do something different, like I promise it can happen. And I said in that moment, like something totally uncharacteristic, I said, listen, I'll do whatever you say. Whatever you say. I spent the night at his house that night, and the next morning I was in rehab.
Okay. So the concrete cracks,
Yeah.
seed gets planted. Talk about what did you do? Like, how did you water this little seed? Was it a straight journey? Was it a roller coaster? I mean, what were some of the moments that this seed began to be watered?
Yeah, I mean, that was 15 years ago. And yeah, I was still like reluctant and resistant, but like that one seed had broke through. And so out of it started to grow the sense that maybe I'm not helpless.
Hmm.
Like I still feel unlovable and unworthy, but maybe like I can do something about it,
Hmm.
you know? So I went to rehab and got kicked out once and came back and struggled and butted heads with staff and was reluctant to AA and all of it. But over the course of time, like that one seed started to grow. So even though I was reluctant, even though I was resistant, even though I didn't fully believe everything that everyone was telling me, I kept one foot in front of the other and I just followed the lead of this person. And over the next couple of years, like what happened was that that facade and that shell cracked more. And so then, like the seeds that my parents had started to plant years ago, the seeds that that counselor had started to plant, the ideas and thoughts that that mentor in prison planted, like I was able to start to see, holy shit, like I did have people that cared about me. Like they did love me,
Hmm.
and therapy helped. Obviously, I was going to therapy twice a week. I was heavily involved in 12-step program. Like I was doing all the things for my sobriety at the time, but also for my mental health and my wellness, and my spirituality started to grow. And I think the biggest one was I had been holding on to this thought for years that my mother, my birth mother, had relinquished all rights to me because she didn't love me, right? That was the foundation to
Hmm.
every negative belief I had growing up. And, like, what a way to live. Like, if you truly believe that you're unlovable, then nothing in life matters, man. Because what do we as humans want more than anything? It's to be loved.
Connection.
Yeah. So everything that all the bad decisions I had in my life, all the spiraling out of control, all the neglecting everyone's love and care, that was a direct result of me believing that I was unlovable. And finally, somewhere, years into sobriety and going to therapy and working on myself, I was able to look back on that moment and realize, like, oh, like, what it was is I had a daughter. I had a daughter, and I remember being terrified because fuck, man, how am I gonna be a parent? Like, my dad abandoned me, my mom didn't love me. Like, how can I do this? And I remember feeling a lot of fear up until the moment she was born. And they put her in the little basket and they wheeled her into another room. And I went into that room and there was no nurses there. They were all working on her mom. And it was just me and her. And I looked down at her and she smiled at me. And in that moment, whatever shell I had left melted away. And it felt like my heart beat for the first time in my life. And I felt love. I felt genuine love. And in that moment, I felt worthy of love. And through the process of being a parent and stepping into that role, I made a decision that I was going to be the best possible parent I could be. And through being a parent, I was able to realize that the decision that my mom made when I was a child to give me up couldn't have possibly been because she loved me. Because if the state of California came to me and said, Roman, your daughter would be better off without you, that her life would be better, and she would have a chance if you weren't in it, it would be the hardest thing I would ever have to do. Even thinking about it makes me choke up. But because I love my daughter so much, I would say, okay, whatever's best for her, you know? And in that moment, I realized that my mom didn't give me up because she didn't love me. It's because she did love me, which which means that I'm fucking lovable, which means that I'm worthy, which means I'm not hopeless. I'm not helpless. All these thoughts I've had since childhood, in that moment, dude, they shattered. They shattered.
I don't remember exactly when it was. It was either right before Joe was born or right after she was born. You and I were having a conversation. And I remember we were talking a lot about the fears that you described, a lot of the worry about what kind of father you'll be, and right, a lot of reflection, a lot of insight, a lot of going into what you've just described. And in that moment, saying to you, you have this opportunity to give your daughter what you never had.
Yeah. Not only that, man, but like I made a decision not only to be the best dad that I possibly could be and give her everything I never had, but a fire lit inside of me that had been a flame for a while, you know? Since I was a kid, I always wanted to help others, you know? I looked out for other kids in foster homes. I had a sense like that maybe that was part of my purpose. I felt like I had no purpose, but if I did, that might be it. And then my daughter was born, and that little tiny flame poof, ignited, man, this passion and this purpose in my soul that not only was I going to be the best dad and I was going to help her have an amazing life, but I was going to do everything in my power, this newfound power I had to help others, to help those who also feel helpless, hopeless, who feel like the system was rigged or that they were abandoned, that they were neglected, that they were despair, like those others who are living on the streets under bridges, praying that the bridge will collapse, those that are going to all these meetings every day, desperately trying to stay sober, those who are trying to build connections but don't know how, that I was going to do everything I could to be out there and champion those, to be out there and be a shepherd for those, because I'd been given this gift, this second chance, this opportunity. And with that, I felt like a great sense of responsibility, and that carries on today, you know?
So you just reflected back that even before any life changes happened, any transformation in life, getting sober, changing your life, the birth of your daughter, all of this, that you were also the kid, that there was an inherent or an innate desire to want to protect, to want to help. It's always so interesting to think about. A lot of times we end up doing the things that we didn't get. So if we didn't get the help, we want to turn into the helper. So it's like even your reflection back is that there was a part of you that knew, this is what I want to do. I want to be the protector. I want to provide for people. I want to help. I want to do this. And then as you found this power and sobriety and then masculinity and, and all of these other things, that the fire ignited to say, it's now my opportunity, maybe even
it's my destiny.
I like that a lot.
It is. I feel that way today. As long as I can remember, man, like I didn't think I was worth it, but I believe that you guys were. A quick story. I used to walk around this apartment complex at night. My mom was gone, whatever. And I would, around dinner time, I would go and stare in people's windows. Just a kid. And I would watch them having dinner as a family. And I was like, I want that someday. And I remember watching people on the streets with signs, and people would come up and give them money. And I was like, one day when I have money, I'm going to give that person money. And even though I've been in the depths of hell and I've been that person with the sign on the street, like it was always my goal, even though I didn't believe that it was going to happen, that someday if I could, like I was going to give back in any way that I could. And like today, I have that. I have a family at home. I have a bunch of kids. I have a beautiful partner. Like we have dinner together. And I go out and I talk to those that are homeless, What we're doing here too, man, it's put me in a position. There's nothing else I would rather do in life than go out there and engage with people who are feeling a little broken. And if I could plant a seed, just a little one, there's a chance that that facade and shell that they had might crack just a little, like mine did, for everything magical in my life to happen. And so that's my hope. My hope is that somebody listening or watching this, or somebody that I meet along the way, I have power. We are powerful. Our words carry weight. Our actions can change someone's life. I've had angels in my life who did everything they could. And I came through the other side because of them. And now I have an opportunity to raise kids, instill in them the values and morals that my adoptive parents have, and also give them the love and the caring and the self-esteem that I never had in an environment where they can grow. And then I get to do this.
You're a part of breaking the generational chains that in one sense you could have carried on, or say, no, I am going to be the person that stands up and does something different with my children in order for them not to carry the burden that who knows how many generations before you carried into your childhood. And now you've not only had the opportunity and are living the opportunity to break those chains, but then to give of yourself and the gifts that you have to the world and to create impact. It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
So I guess the question, and you already really answered, but I'll circle back to see if there was anything missed. So the thing that keeps you up at night, the fire that burns inside of you that you just can't put out, what is that?
Mm. I've thought about this a lot. Being a parent and a father is one of the most important things in my life. But like, I ask, okay, why? You know, not just for my kids' sake, but also it fulfills my purpose and my passion. What is my purpose and passion? Well, my passion is to help others. And I think that my purpose is doing that in the ways that I can. My vision is that we live in a world where love is accessible to all. And that for those that are feeling hopeless and helpless, that there's an outlet for them. And however I can create that, I'm not sure. We're doing it now, and we'll continue to do that. And that's the rest of my life is dedicated to solving that piece of the puzzle. I was fortunate and blessed to have some angels in my life. And if I can show up in any capacity to do that for others, then I can die a happy, fulfilled man.
Thank you, Ron. I love you.
Love you too, man. Thank you.
Hard truths
Real conversations
and sparks of possibility.
from a world that's a little
Broken.
ish. Like, comment, and subscribe.
We'll see you next time.